Hello girls and boys, welcome to yet another episode of A Little Modular. Today we will be having fun, lots of fun, with this incredibly powerful sequencer, drum sequencer by ERICA SYNTHS. This is most intuitive and user-friendly sequencer I have ever used in Eurorack. I have many sequencers like Eloquencer, Seek, Pressure Points, Metropolis, Popcorn, and few other sequencers, and while those are really great and I love them all, they still most of the times feel like I'm programming music, I'm programming beats and melodies. This is one of the rare occasions that I can say that a sequencer or a module feels like an actual instrument. So first, maybe let's say what it actually is and what it is not. It is a trigger sequencer, so it's mainly for triggering drums, but also some other modules that require trigger signal like envelopes or anything that actually needs a trigger. You won't be able to sequence a lot of melodies with it, but you will be able to sequence one melody with it, because except having 16 outputs here for trigger outputs and 12 accents right here, you have also CV and gate output right here, which allow you to sequence a melody. Plus, you have two LFO outputs right there, 1 and 2. You also get clock in, clock out, and a reset in. Plus, you also have this really nifty MIDI in right here, which you plug in here with the cable that you get together with the drum sequencer in the box. So it allows for a tight synchronization with your other equipment. The machine is divided in 3 sections. On the right you have the buttons, which serve mainly for inputting the steps, but also for different purposes, like for instance choosing patterns or setting up melodies, inputting accents. In the middle you have the function buttons, which allow you to perform different functions on the steps, on individual steps, individual sequencer lines, but also on a global level, and they allow you to shift the pattern, to edit individual steps, set the playback mode, shuffle, mute, copy, paste the patterns, setting up the length of the patterns. On the left side you have a super easy menu which you navigate just with those 2 really clever encoders. These are push encoders, and the drill here is super simple. You have only 4 items here in each of the menu, and you navigate through them with the first encoder. You can see each of the items being chosen is highlighted and the letters get bigger. If I want to choose and edit bar length, I just choose that, and with the second encoder I choose number of bars, or maybe a length of the sequence, or maybe a scale, which is how fast the sequence will go. Down here you have 3 buttons for transport, which is start, stop, and record or save. This is very important. Each time you assemble a pattern and you want to save it or switch to another pattern, you need to save that. You need to press that. It means that when you press it, this pattern is saved. Also, it allows you to perform simultaneously on all of the instruments while being in the step tap mode, which I'll talk about more in a second. So now let's start with the basics. The most important 2 buttons you will need at the beginning are those 2, trigger select button right there and pattern mode. You switch between 2 global modes with this right here, pattern. When you press it once, and you can see pattern number right here and the tempo, which you can change right here. This means that you are in the pattern mode. That's where you choose your patterns. You can see that with those buttons I choose different patterns, A5, A8. You can switch between them rapidly without waiting for the pattern to end while holding shift. In this mode, you also switch some global parameters. But if you want to edit the drums and play around, you have to press it again. So you can see this menu right here. In this menu, you are editing each of the tracks manually. And that's how you choose the tracks. You can choose it either by selecting trig right here. So you'll go to trig and then select each of the tracks, as you can see, up to 16. And then past the 16 is CV, which means that's the melodic track, so gauge CV. Or you could do it faster, and I like it more, it's more intuitive, while pressing trig select right here and one of the buttons right here. You can see it changes. So if I want to edit my kick drum, for instance, which is on 1. By the way, on the drums I use 4 hex inverter drums right here, channels 1 through 4. Then I am using one of beautiful new other modules that I will describe by ERICA SYNTHS, which is called Black Code Source. This is a really advanced and nice noise and random signals modules, which I will also review soon. Besides that, I'm using the gate and CV channels to sequence my DPO going through the Borg, and I'm using first LFO to modulate Borg's cutoff frequency, and I'm using a second LFO from here to modulate the rate CV on Black Code Source. So I have chosen my bass drum. If I want to input some steps, I just press it like so. And here we go. Now for each of the tracks, I can have a different length. Again, you can switch the length here, 16, as you can see. So we can get some odd, strange rhythms. Or you can do it faster by holding the last step and just pressing the desired end step of the pattern. So if I press here, it's going to be 15. If I press here, it's going to be 12. And again, if I press here, it's going to be the odd 10. Let's leave it at that. Now the other parameter here is scale, meaning how fast it will go to the main clock. So I can switch it so it goes really fast, 1/32, 1/16 in triplet mode, then 1/16 and slower, 1/8 tripled, 1/8, 1/4. So these are the choices. Okay. Now also each of the tracks can have a different playback mode. If you press the direction button right here and you choose different mode here, it will change. It will go backwards, as you can see, ping pong, and it will also go random. You can also have a different shuffle for each track. You can just press shuffle and change the shuffle mode right there. Besides that, each of the steps on a certain track can have some individual properties, and you do that by pressing shift and the desired step. And we have another menu with just 4 items. So the first item is bar number. In most menus you can choose how many bars you get. If you press this button right here, you have this arrow here showing you auto follow mode, which means that if you have one then more bar, this will switch the pages of the bars automatically while switching to another bar, which is very convenient. Now this second item right here is especially useful. It's a micro shifting, something that you also get on Electron machines. So we can shift each of those steps individually forwards or backwards. You can hear it if I move it. Can you hear it? So we can create your own shuffle feel. Now if we choose this step, you can see it goes to 0 again, and I can change it to, let's say, I can shift it other way. Now if I want to go back to defaults, I just press this encoder and it goes back to default. Very clever and easy. Now the other option here is probability. So besides having option to randomize in the direction menu, I can set a different probability right here. So I can choose different ratios like 1 to 2, 1 3, 1 to 4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, then different ratios, and then in percentages, 10% or 50%. We can refer back to electron machines again and compare this to trig conditions. So I can choose a different trig condition probability for each step. I can go here and choose different probability, go here and make a different probability, and for each of those steps I can also set a different retriggering parameter. So it can be slow or really fast, like some ratcheting. Okay, so we can come up with some really fast and crazy polyrhythms which are mashed, randomized, and switched around. Now, besides that, each of the tracks can be shifted left or right. Like for instance, when I press shift and paste or copy, you can see the whole pattern switching left or right. Okay, so that's very convenient, because sometimes when you make a groove and it doesn't feel right, all you need is to just nudge it 1 or 2 steps left or right, and that's what this is for. Okay, if you want to clear the pattern, you can clear just a part of it. It will erase all of the steps that were playing while you were holding the clear. Okay, or you can clear a whole track by pressing shift and clear promptly, and it's gone. So let's make a whole simple beat. Okay, 4 on the floor. I'm changing to another track, so trig select, and the second button you can see it change here. Now if I press this once, or I press the combination of shift and trig select right here, you can see a small plus appearing right here. It means that this track has accents enabled on it. And as you can see right here on the second track, I have this track connected to snare and also to accent of the snare. So now when I press those buttons right here, I can have 3 different modes on it. I can have it inactive, no LED. I can have it active, and when I press it again, I can have accent on it. So now as you can hear it, those two sound different. This one is stronger, and this one is weaker. And this allows you for some really dynamic patterns and grooves. It's crucial for really dynamic grooves in electronic music. So now if I change those different, okay, you can hear it, it's more dynamic. So I have this pattern, I press shift and trig and enable some different accents on different steps. And I can now nudge it left or right. Okay, now we have a simple pattern, and how about adding a melody to it? You can do that by pressing trig select and pressing the second encoder. Now we can see we are in the CV mode. You can also choose that by this method manually. So if you go past 16, you go to this CV track, and CV track works pretty much the same as triggering track. You need to input your steps first. Now if you press the first encoder again, you will get into step editing mode for the melodic mode. So now when I press the steps, they won't disappear. Instead, I will just choose them for editing. So if I want to edit this step, I can edit the bar length or the note. That's what we want. You can hear it changes. I have the CV output connected to my DPO 1 volt per octave input. And I can just change different notes. Maybe I can change also octave on it. Okay, so it's more interesting. I can also change the length of it. we already have some nice groove. Now if you want to go to LFO and modulate some parameters, you need to go to trick select, again hold it and press the first encoder, and now we can choose between two LFOs. So we can see LFO2 or LFO1. LFO1 is modulating some stuff on my board, so I can change the shape of the LFO. As you can hear, triangle, sine, saw. Let's leave it at so because it sounds nice. I can change the frequency, so how fast the LFO goes. Let's leave it at 1/4, and I can change the depth of the modulation with the amp. So let's leave it at 100 because it sounds good. I can do the same thing with the second LFO, which is connected to my black source code. We need to input some of the notes into it. This is track number 5, I believe. So let's go to 5. And again, press trick select, LFO 2, and we can change some parameters here. Sample and hold maybe, so it's more interesting, and slower ratio. Okay, now we can of course go out of here and change some parameters so it's more interesting. Maybe last step. Now I love this pattern, right? So if I want to save it, I need to press the last button right here, record. You can see it said just saved. So now when I switch to other patterns, it won't be gone, because if I wouldn't do that, it will be gone. So that's very important. You need to press this button once you like it. We can mute some of the parts, and we can mute the parts if we press the mute right here, and we can mute the CV gate track right here, and we can also unmute the LFOs so they won't affect our signal. We can unmute those tracks individually, like so, or we can just press shift and mute and unmute them all at the same time, which is very convenient in a live scenario. So now let's say I'm done with this pattern. I like it, I have saved it, and I want to paste it to some other location. Now you need to go to the pattern right here, and we can see it's A5 right here. Now press copy, and this pattern is copied. Now choose a different location, like let's say A16, and press paste, and you're done. Now we can change the patterns. Go to A1, go to A2. Now another cool option here is you can chain the patterns, and this is super simple. What you need to do, you just need to be in the pattern mode, and you just press and hold the first pattern and the second pattern that you want to chain, and it will play through. So you can see 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now if you want to go out of this, you just need to press any of the patterns you want to stay in 2 times, and it stays in number 2, okay? And then again, we can, for instance, chain those 2. Very nice and intuitive. And now we can also play around with those patterns while being in the fill mode, which is also one of my favorites. You go into the fill mode by pressing shift and step tap right here. And now whenever you hold that step, it will play it, and you can change the rate of the fill, so it's really fast. So as you can see, it's an instrument just like I said, it's playable. It has those big buttons, those nice big encoders, big letters and the digits on the OLED screen. It's bright, and last but not least, it's very, very elegant. As you can see, no absurd, wonky, crazy, graphics on it that distract you. It's pure techno aesthetics, black and white, serious instrument for serious musicians. I love every bit of this sequencer, and I can't recommend it enough. It's not cheap. It goes for 600 euros plus VAT. But if you think about other sequencers in that league that offers so much capabilities, like Eloquencer, for instance, it's in the same ballpark. And with this amount of outputs and power, you can easily sequence any system, even a really big one. So what can I say? Do yourself a favor and try it out. And I bet once you touch those buttery, super sexy feeling buttons, you won't be able to send it back. It's so cool. And as usual, if you like that video, please like, subscribe, and spread the good word. I'll see you next time. Take care.